accountable, transparent, competitive, and cost-effective. The National Treasury and the Department have devised a system of procurement foreshadowed in Section 217, provided for in several policies and regulations. On 24 May 2020, the Department obtained a deviation in terms of Treasury Regulation 16 Big A 6.4. It was motivated on the basis of the emergency created by the COVID-19 pandemic to urgently appoint service providers to sanitize and decontaminate schools exposed to COVID-19. The procurement deviation authorizes a departure from the standard procurement procedures to expedite the procurement process. The deviation is still required to meet the Section 217 requirements. More importantly, there has to be a rational connection between the deviation sought and the need to procure goods urgently in an emergency to justify non-compliance with the Section 217 requirements. The deviation should never justify wanton non-compliance with Section 217. The SIU contends that the procedure followed by the department lacks in the following respects. 1. The Supply Chain Management Division in the department, whose responsibility it is to manage supply chain management processes, including inviting, vetting, and appointing bidders, was not involved in the procurement process. The deviation never authorized a departure from the standard procedure. 2. The procurement fails to meet the cost effectiveness requirement in that the service providers did not submit quotations. The contract fees were devised by Mr. Baloyi, the Chief Director, Physical Resource Planning and Property Management in the department, without reference to the nature and type of services to be rendered, the size of the school, the cost of the material, and/or labor resources to be employed. The basis on which Baloyi determined to offer a fee of 250,000 rands to 270,000 rands for primary schools and 250,000 rands to 290,000 rands for secondary schools and 250,000 rands to 300,000 rands for district offices is inconsistent with above mentioned cost factors. The performance certificates signed by school principals or district officers reflect that the same amount was paid without reference to the nature of the work done, the duration of the work, and the number of persons employed to perform the work. On the respondent's own version, the nature and duration of the work and human resources employed to perform it differed across schools, yet they charged the same fee for each school category as determined by Baloyi. The respondent's assertion that there is no practical purpose in setting aside the contract where the evidence indicates that full value was received and cannot be returned is not substantiated. They have offered no justification for the fees that they have charged, nor have they quantified the fees. They simply shrug responsibility for justifying the fee by alleging that the department determined the fee. The SIU intends to establish in the review application that the department did not receive full value for the payment it made to the respondents. The third material irregularity is as follows. The contractors were randomly appointed from a list of service providers that were retained for a previous contracts. Others were identified through WhatsApp messages. This manner of selection and appointment falls short of the transparent, fair, and equitable requirements in Section 217. Even if the respondents in this application were registered on the supply chain management database and accredited for the procured service as they contend, the other irregularities listed above, to which the respondents have advanced no prima facie opposition. Oh, I need to read that again. Even if the respondents were registered on the database and accredited for the procured service as they contend, the other irregularities listed above, to which they have advanced no defense, are prima facie fatal to the contracts. In the premises, the preservation order that was granted on 1 July 2021 was premised on a proper case made out by the SIU. The respondents' grounds of opposition lack merit. Therefore, the reconsideration application stands to be dismissed with costs. The following order issues: 1, condonation for the late filing of the replying affidavit is granted. 2, the reconsideration application is dismissed. 3, the costs of the ex parte application. I'll read that again. The costs of the ex parte application are reserved. The first to 7 respondents shall pay the applicant's costs of opposition. That's 4. 5, with the exception of paragraphs 4 and 5, whose purpose has been exhausted. The order granted on 1 June 2021 and remains operative on the terms set out in that order. That is the judgment. The proceedings are adjourned.
As it pleases, my lady.
As it pleases the court.
All right, so that special order remains operational in that issue of the Gauteng schools case. The judgment being handed down saying deviations to procurement processes were not followed. Service providers were appointed randomly, some by WhatsApp, some on the system. There was one cost paid to all service providers, but there doesn't seem like there was a reference to the work done, and there was no authorization there. So that's the judgment as it stands. It's time for a short